Hello and welcome, this is Mousegunner, and we're going to be starting another run of the Warlock of Firetop Mountain with the new Goblin Scourge DLC. And we'll be... Okay, welcome back, player. See that the Goblin Gauntlet has ended for this round. Maybe try another of Zagor's minions. Okay. Not this time, though, because what I'd like to do... Remember that more kills mean more souls. Alright, let me try a new figurine. Which hero would you take into Firetop Mountain this time? Okay, so as I said, I'm not going to do the Goblin Gauntlet this time. Instead, we're going to take a look at the new heroes. So let's take a look at what we've got for these heroes. So starting off, we'll take a look at Ophelia Lapwing. So Ophelia Lapwing has 19 stamina, 11 skill, which is very high. That's going to be really good for clashes in combat. 8 luck is pretty average. Born under a full moon in a clearing in Darkwood Forest, there is something strangely ethereal about Ophelia Lapwing. Some folks in the nearby villages whisper that she is really the child of fairies. Others say that the spirits both blessed and cursed her at birth. Tied to no one and nowhere, Ophelia wandered Alancia seeking treasure wherever it lies. She is rich beyond dreams already, but still she continues to delve into dungeons and ruins in search of more. She undertakes each new adventure without a penny in her pocket, but where she keeps her riches is anyone's guess. Alright, so she is educated, has above average level of education. She is lucky. Fortune favors you often. So that means we will pass luck tests automatically, if I remember correctly. So the fact that her luck skill is average is alright. We have attacks. She's not particularly strong directly in front of her, but much stronger on her left side, or the diagonal attack. And those are going to be our standard attacks, I assume. We have Blind Side, a quick slash of her blade, and suddenly Ophelia has shifted places. So she's going to dodge either to the left or the right and do 2 damage and 2 squares. So this is going to be pretty similar to the giant rat that we played earlier, which did more or less the same attack, although I think it was the squares that were affected were different. So rather than 2 damage here, it was 2 damage here, but otherwise pretty much the same ability. And then we have Ethereal Feign. This is the one thing that's pretty interesting about Ophelia. A deceptive attack that cannot be parried or blocked. This attack automatically wins any clash. So we already have a really high skill level, which is going to allow us to win a lot of clashes anyway, but this always is going to do damage, and it's going to do damage into the 2 squares in front of Ophelia. So that's pretty good. Let's just take a look at the other heroes real quick. I'm not going to read through all of their descriptions, but let's see what they've got to offer. So we've got Dexterous, which I believe allows you to do skill checks automatically, and when I say skill checks, I mean non-clash skill checks. Otherwise has 9 skill, 7 luck, and 22 stamina, so lower luck and skill, but higher stamina. And then is illiterate, so anything that comes up in the game that is reading-oriented, we will be at a disadvantage, obviously. As far as attacks, more or less the opposite of Ophelia, so a lot of damage in front, not so much damage to the diagonals. We have a Stunning Sweep, so this is going to do stun damage, and this is what I was talking about when I was doing the Goblin's Gauntlet challenge, and we were taking a look at the minions. This is what you should see for a stun. It should be these yellow damage indicators rather than the red ones. But in any case, this cleaves the area in front of him, stunning enemies. So a lot of ground covered and 2 damage. And then Reckless Charge. This is yet another interesting attack, although we did see this a little bit with the zombie character that's in the Goblin's Gauntlet that we haven't yet played as yet. So I don't actually know how this mechanic works functionally in the game. But not one to think where there is opportunity to act, Vignor charges into the fray without hesitation. This attack deals 1 damage to Vignor. So that's why the player character is marked red, damage to you, but also does 4 damage in 2 spaces in front of Vignor, which is a lot of damage. Okay, let's take a look at the last of the 3 heroes. So we have Haldar Eriksson, 18 stamina, which I believe is the lowest of the group. 8 skill, 12 luck, very high luck. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the attributes. So lucky again, so that's kind of weird. He's got very high luck, but he also has lucky, which means that he's always going to automatically pass luck checks. There might be other times that luck comes to play, but I don't actually know that for sure. But he also has Keen Eye, which is actually a very powerful ability. It's going to allow you to notice things in the game world that others won't be able to see, which is quite an advantage. It oftentimes allows you to find secrets easily. This is an ability that I highly recommend if you're new to the game. I wouldn't necessarily recommend these characters to play if you're new to the game, but there are a number of starting characters that have Keen Eye, and this ability is extremely helpful. On the other hand, though, your first playthrough, maybe you shouldn't, because it is going to give you hints to things that are kind of spoilers to a certain extent. So I would say maybe your first playthrough, don't play as a Keen Eye character, but then in following playthroughs, if you're having a little difficulty with the game, I'd say definitely use the Keen Eye because it will be giving you a great advantage. All right, moving on. Attacks. Good damage up front. That's more than average. Usually an average damage is 2 in this game anyway. So 3 damage up front. We've got 2 damage to the diagonal. 2 damage in 2 spaces here and shielded, which means that Haldar cannot be damaged while using this attack. And then we have 3 areas of 2 damage. And hurling a trio of throwing daggers, Haldar can retreat to a safer distance. Okay. I like it, but you know what? Looking at the different characters, I think I'm going to go with Ophelia here. So that's the character we're going to work with. So let's go ahead and select her. You have chosen Ophelia Lapwing. If you like, you may select a different hero. If you're happy with the choice, and so on and so forth. This is just normal tutorial stuff. So if this is the first time you've ever played, I highly recommend hit the tutorial. But we're not going to do that because I've played this game several times now, and I have a good understanding of how the game works. So we're just going to go ahead and travel to Firetop Mountain. Or we'll go over this way. So this must be the Goblin Scourge element of the thing, because this is a completely different entrance and introduction. Last, your 2-day hike is over. It took longer than you thought as you skirted your home of Darkwood Forest, avoiding encounters with the dangerous beasts which lurk within. For once, your quest is not about treasure and glory, but instead one of knowledge. Darkwood Forest itself is in peril. The very life seems to be draining from the trees themselves. The once majestic trees are succumbing to a strange magical disease that makes them wither and rot within a matter of weeks. Young saplings, which would have once taken their place, are also failing to. I am curious, is Ophelia supposed to be an elf? I thought her ears looked a little pointy, but it was hard for me to tell exactly on the model. You need to find out why this is happening, and the so-called Warlock of Firetop Mountain may hold some clues, or at worst, be directly involved with the potential catastrophe. You fear that unless you can find a cure, the forest will be doomed. You lower yourself down onto the mossy rock to sit for a moment's rest. The mountain looming above you. Since leaving your home, you have been feeling unwell. At first, it felt like fatigue, but more recently, you have been sleeping fitfully and your skin has become feverishly hot to touch. After some time, you make your way up a steep, rocky slope to a small opening in a cliff wall. You have seen goblins making their way to and from the entrance, and you're quite sure this is a possible entrance into Zagor's domain. Your adventure starts here. All right, let's peer into the gloom. So this is a alternate entrance, it looks like. So I have no idea what to predict here. This is completely new for me. You see a rocky corridor stretching out into the gloom ahead, and there is the sound of rushing water bubbling somewhere deep beneath your feet. All right, let's continue. It feels cool in here. Hopefully, this will quell my raging fever. Okay, well, before we go any further, let's take a look in our inventory. So we've got a sword, we've got 5 provisions. We've got a lantern, a wooden shield, a backpack, and a rope. And we have the quest, confront Robin of Orman, the Master of Earth, and discover how to heal Darkwood Forest. Alright, I think I know what they're talking about with that, but I'm not exactly sure how we get there from this entrance, so we'll have to see. We've already read the bio. Let me just remind myself really quickly of the attacks. So we've got 1 damage in front, 3 damage to a diagonal. We can do our sidestep, which I'm going to assume has a cooldown, and then we have our ethereal attack, which again, I assume has a cooldown, but I don't know that for sure. Alright, let's light up our lantern. You light your lantern and begin wandering through the rock-hewn tunnel. The walls are damp, and there are small bones and animal droppings littered across the floor. You hear the sound of small, scurrying feet and the darkness ahead. 3 brown-skinned goblins run towards you across a wooden walkway, snarling and shouting aggressively, waving their weapons in the air. I'm barely in the mountain, and I already have a fight on my hands. One word echoes around the corridor. Intruder! Alright, let's fight those goblins. It looks like we didn't have a way around this one. Alright, I don't like the look of this. I don't know if that's going to fall down or not. It could just be decoration, some kind of cage. Alright, so I'm going to assume these goblins work the same way that normally goblins work. So we could do Ethereal Feint, but I don't think that would land. This does appear to be an ability that would normally have a cooldown, but I'm not sure of that necessarily. Let's just go ahead and move here. Oh, hello. That goblin didn't move in the way a goblin normally moves. Alright, I would prefer to do the blind side like this. I'm assuming goblins still attack to a diagonal, but I'm not actually sure of that. Would we be better off just clashing with him? Yeah, I think we'd be better off just clashing with him. We have 11 skill after all. Alright, so that should be an easy win. He's queuing an attack, but I assume goblins can only attack diagonally, so we'll just attack back into him. If I'm wrong, we'll get hit. Okay, so these goblins are working a little bit differently than I'm used to goblins working. Normally speaking, goblins will move to the sides, not directly in front of themselves, but if they are moving that way, we can just attack this and kill him. And he should be moving right there, but we'll use the Ethereal Feint to do a little bit of extra damage, and then we'll hit him with a normal attack. And there we go. So we didn't take any damage there, but that did throw me off guard a little bit. The goblins are working a little bit differently than they normally do, but that's okay. We'll adjust to it. Alright, we get 9 souls. You defeated the goblins. You quickly inspect the goblins and turn out some gold coins from their pockets. Alright, we got 5 gold pieces. How many gold did we start with? We had 3 in our pocket, so that means we have a total of 8 now. And we have 5 provisions to work with as well, which is going to help heal us. I'm assuming we also have the resurrection stones, so we should have 3 of those. Alright, we've got the 5 gold pieces. You have learned much about goblins over the years, and your education tells you, I almost forgot we had that you always post guards near the entrance. Their actual lairs always tend to be built a lot deeper underground. Let's hope that this clan don't feel that they need to have too many goblins guarding the entrance. That fight was quite noisy and could attract more. Okay, so we could hide the goblins' bodies or press on in the lair. Why not? Drag the 3 goblins back to the entrance and place them outside, behind a large outcrop of rock. Hopefully, they should be well hidden, and even if there are more goblins prowling around on these slopes. Press on into the lair. I don't know if what advantage there was to doing that, and I almost wonder if there was an option only available to us because of the educated skill. You clamber across a small gorge that cuts the path in 2. Poorly constructed goblin bridge made up of rough wooden planks creaks under your weight, but appears to hold. You can hear the trickle of water flowing down below. Somewhere in the darkness, however, it is hard to judge how far down it actually is. On reaching the other side, you can see a small table and chairs, which you assume was where the goblins were seated before you walked in. And we have ourselves our first resting bench. That's pretty early. So if we had taken any damage, we'd be healing now. Also set against the wall is a wooden bench where you may rest, which of course we will do. And as normal, Oriana always advises that you do this. Player, I would strongly advise sitting on this bench. If you do not, Ophelia Lapwing will not be able to resurrect at this location if they perish. And what that means, if we died, that would be it. So, of course, we're going to sit on the bench and rest, but we have other options here. We can rest and consume provisions. We can ignore the bench, which is not advisable because you're not going to be able to use the bench again later, so you might as well. So let's just sit on the bench and rest. You sit down on the bench and rest for a moment. Your aching muscles ease and your tiredness wanes. It's good to take a break on your adventure. And it's going to give me this message every time I rest, so I'm not going to read this in the future. And we would get 5 stamina back if we needed it. Alright, so let's examine the table. The table appears to be made of old pieces of driftwood, no doubt scavenged from a river. There are some bones lying on top, along with some gold pieces. My guess is that they were playing some kind of gambling game. They resemble actual goblin bones, too. Yuck. You go to grab the few coins from the table, and then realize that beneath the bones there are even more coins. You push the bones away with your weapon, and then take the goblin's haul. Luckily for you, they were betting large amounts of gold. Hey! There comes our luck attribute. Now, I don't know if that's something that we would have to roll for as far as luck, normally speaking, but hey, I'll take it. So we get 18 gold pieces. That's going to be useful later. Let's continue east. A wooden jetty lies to the south, so we can investigate the jetty, or we can continue east. It's hard to tell if this is going to be a branching path of some type, but let's investigate the jetty. The sound of rushing water intensifies as you walk onto the wooden jetty. Waving your lantern, you can see 3 crude nets hanging down into the darkness, attached to the wooden handles, wedged between the wooden planks. You suspect that you suspect these to be fishing nets trawling into the unseen river below. All right, so we can pull up some of the nets, or we can ignore the nets and continue. This sounds like a really bad idea. Let's go ahead and pull up the first net. You give the net a good pull and haul it up onto the jetty. 2 small white fish thrash around inside. No fan of raw fish, but these could come useful if my provisions run low. So did I actually get the fish? Oh yeah, that's just straight up provisions there, so that's good. Alright, let's keep looking the gift horse in the mouth. Pull up the second net, bending down, you begin to lift up the net. There's something heavy on the other end, and you need to sit and brace yourself. Despite your strength, you fail to secure yourself. The wood is damp and slimy, and you realize that the weight is actually pulling you slowly close to the edge of the jetty. Let's just let go of it. You release the net and let the wet rope slide through your fingers. Whatever was on the other end splashes into the water below. Alright, let's pull up the third net. Drag the net onto the jetty, and a small solid object clatters onto the wooden planks. It looks like some kind of metal box. Alright, let's pull out the box and examine it. The metal box has a thin lid that pops open as soon as you exert some pressure on it. Inside, you find a small glass sphere along with some gold coins. Alright, 10 gold pieces. Why would a goblin look to hide a glass ball unless it was magical? Alright, do we have that now? Yeah, we do. Good. Let's leave the jetty and head east. I don't know what was in that one net, but I'm not going to worry about it. You stand beneath an iron cage that is suspended above you. To your left, 2 wooden beams hold up what appears to be a small wooden hut. To your right, you see a larger wooden hut accessed by a number of wooden planks acting like a makeshift bridge. Okay, so investigate the hut to your left. Look closely at the cage. Walk across the makeshift bridge to the larger hut. Or keep heading east. Let's take a look at the hut on our left first. The hut is crudely built from old pieces of driftwood. You can see a small window, but there doesn't appear to be anyone or anything in it. Okay, so we can try and climb up to the window, ignore this hut, and examine the cage. Let's try and climb up. The climb is easy as you pull yourself up onto the wooden planks. You peer through the window and see a small room big enough for a goblin to stand. You see 2 broken arrows of goblin design lying on the floor. This must be where a goblin archer would normally sit. Okay, so we can, I guess, just continue forward with, we'll look into the cage. As you are perched at the same height as the cage, it is easy to hold your lantern forward and look through the bars. The light reflects off of something shiny inside. Okay, let's reach over and grab the cage. Reach out with your weapon and manage to hook the cage, which you pull towards you. Rolling around inside the cage is a small glass sphere. Reach inside and grab the sphere. Letting go of the cage, it swings backwards into the darkness. So now we have 2. I've seen something like this before. It has magical energy, so we now have 2 small glass spheres. So I guess it's good that we're exploring here. All right, let's click to continue. And I think I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in the video here. So this is pretty interesting. I expected that there would be a new part of the dungeon possibly, but I didn't know it would be right out the gate. But I guess that makes sense to a certain extent, and I'm going to guess that the 3 adventurers that are for this DLC are going to be the ones taking this entrance. So if I were to play as somebody other than Ophelia, I'm going to assume that this is the way that we would take. In any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This is Mouse Gunner, signing out.